Welcome to the show, Chris Liepe. Really honored to have you. Thank you for agreeing to chat with me a bit today. For those who don't know you, Chris is an amazing vocalist, vocal coach, YouTube reactor as well, offers courses on how to find your voice, discover your voice, free your voice. But talk to me a little bit about music in general. I know that that's your field of expertise. What does it mean to you? What does it do with you?
So music for me really started before I could play music. It was a soothing thing for me. When I was very, very little, my parents would tell me, but I even remember I have this constant rock, and when music would come on, I would rock more, and I would rock myself to sleep, and or my mom would rock me to sleep, and there'd always be music on. Really, it started to get me in my teens, actually, when that's an emotional part of life where you're not understanding why you feel certain ways, and the sound of certain vocalists really helped me express or work out how I felt.
Okay.
And one of those vocalists early on was Chris Cornell. He always sounded how I felt in my early teens. And I think that was one reason I gravitated towards the music of Soundgarden so much, but also one of the reasons that I became so curious about vocals later, because he sounded unlike any other singer that I had heard, and was able to express my emotions somehow through his voice. And that happened with guitar playing too, in my teens. There were certain guitar players that seemed to have this certain voice and language to their playing that resonated with me in a way that I couldn't quite explain. And it was that curiosity plus my early, though I didn't know it, recognition of the therapy aspect of music that I think is a huge part of who I am. Even before I'm a vocalist, it's a fan of how certain music, without even really being able to explain it, infiltrates you and does things in you that resonate with what's already happening in you.
Yeah. I love how you worded that, because that's been on my mind lately, how in our field of work, the focus is so often on analyzing, trying to bring educational value and add to what we're reviewing. But there is also that aspect of really feeling it and being open to what's happening here that is so magical that sometimes goes beyond understanding or a simple explanation. Would you agree with that? Like, what is your take on finding the education, but also just experiencing the emotion?
Yeah. I think you have to, well, let me say this. If you try to find education before being willing to truly and vulnerably experience the music's impact on you, you will enter into this sort of striving mode where it becomes about technique and goodness and being a proper musician or whatever, but you'll completely miss what connects people to music in the first place. And it's what I was talking about. It's the experience of music. And that's why, so many great, successful musicians, they're not the best musicians, right? They're not the most technically great. I've heard amazing, technically proficient musicians who are boring because they're not connected to their emotions. My perception is that they're not connected to their emotions. They may be. But I think sometimes the pursuit of technique, the pursuit of something that you want to do with your voice or do with your instrument can really get in the way of your ability to vulnerably and connectedly express, make those connections with other people. And so I always encourage people when they're learning to sing, start by, first of all, drawing inspiration from people that you love, from vocalists that you really love. But at the same time, be willing from the very outset to be completely unhinged and just make stupid noises and come at it from a sensation standpoint, but also an emotionally present standpoint. It's more important that I am comfortable getting in front of a microphone or a group of people and sharing a story and being being willing to make, dumb noises and being willing to sort of fail, being vulnerable. It's more important that I can do that than hit the high C or get that screaming technique just right or do whatever. That stuff can be learned, but it has to be, if you're gonna be truly in it for the long term, it has to be, I know this sounds weird to a lot of people, but it has to be secondary to coming to terms with your own emotional state and being willing to express that genuinely.
I love that. I love looking at things a lot of times from that therapeutic mental health, psychological aspect. And I think there's a lot of power to actually being present to our emotions first and foremost, right? We can have the textbooks all day long and have a diagnosis, but at the end of the day, we're humans. And I think a lot of people are hungry for that, especially in this day and age where everything is, social.
Yeah.
Through social media and everything is enhanced digitally, technologically, but we're missing authenticity. We're longing for emotion because the emotion is not going away, right? We can cover things up with filters, but our suffering, our humanity is there. And being able to see someone that can convey that, I think is very therapeutic. So I love that that's your priority first and foremost before technicality.
Yeah, I think we need that more, like you said, I think we need that more than ever in this in this stage that we're in with social media, is that anybody can work hard enough to whitewash or mold, craft their image. And I would even say, 5 years ago, people weren't as wise to it. And so it was like, whoa, look at how great her skin is. Or, man, that guy can play or sing really well. Like, the technology's out there. I mean, if we've got AI mimicking our favorite singers. And so it's and I have very little interest in listening to AI music because I know that it's not real. There's nothing that speaks to me on a level that I can connect with, and so I think vocalists. I'll speak from vocalists' side of things. Like with a little bit of education, it really is pretty easy to make you perfect, fake perfect. Let's not pursue that. Let's pursue connection. And you and I both love Ren. And he's far from perfect when it comes to anything, right? But he lets you know that. He just wears everything on his sleeve, and some of that is, the smoky note or the slightly disconnected thing is right next to this crazy thing he does with his voice, but it's all in the context of storytelling and connection. And if that wasn't there, we wouldn't care.
Right. Yeah. If it was just a void or a shallow entertainment with no purpose behind it, no message. And it inspires me to hear you saying that, because I feel there was a time in my life where when I would sing, I was tapping much more into the emotion behind it. It was from my heart, crying out to God, be it faith-based, be it emotional. And people would be touched by it or would compliment me on it. And I think over the years, especially if we're not careful with that comparison draw, or the impostor syndromes we experience, my focus became more technicality. And I think it sometimes either took the joy out of singing for me, or I started becoming my worst critic. And it took away the beauty that emotion was, even if it was imperfect, or, sometimes just a touch too sharp or too flat or whatnot.
Right.
That became the focus. Oh God, I don't sound so good, or it needs to be fixed, versus going, no, this is what I'm feeling. And people genuinely enjoying it because it was true, if that makes sense.
Yes, it's not right, but it is true.
Yes, I
that's
like
huge.
that. I like that. Now, talk to me a little bit more about how do these emotions, when we're truly tapping into that, how do they affect our voice?
You sort of touched on it, right? Like we get to this point where we kind of realize, well, okay, this might be a vulnerable state, but nobody wants to just listen to someone weep uncontrollably. There's this, there's got to be this element of, if we're honest, there's got to be this element of artistic viability to it, so that people even take interest, right?
Yes.
You could make the argument that that's not always the case, depending on the artist, but most of the time that's the case.
Right.
And so this is where, and this, I've worked with students, and this has been my own journey. We have to exist in two different ways. We work on our craft. We hone our technique. We are not judgmental of ourselves. We don't entertain negative self-talk, but we are mindful, introspective, and we learn to take inventory and listen to ourselves, react to ourselves, ask ourselves what we would like to hear different out of our voice, and create this loop. This is where we're honing our craft. This is where we're sharpening our tools. As we're doing this, we're developing muscle memory. This may be learning how to sing higher, learning how to work on our pitch, perfecting that particular scream, whatever. We're working on that technique, and we're developing muscle memory. Anybody knows that when you work on developing muscle memory and you have these things sort of in the back of your mind, your brain is amazing. It will take over unconsciously once you develop this muscle memory, so that when you are in the moment, performing, making a recording, doing a live stream, whatever, if you've practiced and developed this muscle memory, that muscle memory will kick in without you thinking about it and aid in your genuine self-expression. If you don't have the practicing, then you just have raw emotion, right? You
now it's just emotion.
You don't have this honed art form to work with. And I like to use the analogy all the time of a basketball player working on free throws. A great basketball player will shoot thousands and thousands of free throws, or, Steph Curry shooting millions and millions of threes. He is working on muscle memory. He's putting himself in situations in practice where he can make shots over and over and over again, so that when it comes to game time, he's not necessarily thinking about every little movement and every little nuance that makes his shots go in. The practice and muscle memory has created that opportunity so that he can essentially abandon into the experience of the game. And
That's beautifully worded. Wow, I love that. Abandoning into it. I love that.
This is where we want to get to the point to where we've practiced in a non-judgmental experiential way, so that those muscle memory tools are there for us when we go to express. These are the two camps. It's not that, you can't have one without the other.
Right. I love that. I absolutely love that. It sounds very holistic. There's a good balance there. You offer various courses such as Free Your Voice or Discover Your Voice. And in your introductions to them, you speak of the true support. That wording stood out to me. What do you mean by that when you're working with students and when you're offering these experiences, these courses? What does true support look like?
So it's twofold, really, and it runs along the same lines as we've been talking about. There's the physical aspect of support, what it feels like. And I've always shied away from using terms like, well, what's true support? Well, singing from your diaphragm. What does that mean? We don't know what that means. Who knows what the diaphragm feels like? It's not, it's a term that doesn't have any experiential meaning to it. So I use different ways to describe support from a physical standpoint, and a lot of times I'll say use your poop muscles. It should feel like you're pooping, or pelvic floor engagement is another thing that I'll say. And there's this idea that when we're supporting our voice correctly, and when we're in this balance where we're supporting our voice correctly, we should feel a sensation of downward engagement, like we're pushing something out the other end, but that we should also be able to experience the resonance, the dynamic resonance and placement of the sound coming out of our face. If we are present to this sensation and not what's going on in our throat, we will be able to sing with no tension. In other words, we're attentive to here and here, and we let this do what it does naturally as we choose to engage with these areas of our body.
Right.
And that is the physical way that I like to talk about true support. If you don't know how to truly support your voice, click the link below and join. I'm always saying that in my videos. And then there's the other side of support, which is the creative, emotional support, the bringing yourself into it. And I don't talk about that in every video. That's more, as we get into the courses, particularly in my group coaching, we talk about this a lot. What is your mind state? Is your mind state of comparison? Is it of striving? Is it of judgment? Or is it of true expression and individuality and connection. And those are the two sides of it that we always have to be mindful of.
I absolutely love how holistic and even therapeutic, dare I say, your courses seem to be, that you are going beyond the technical aspect and looking into the why, what motivates a person, which will vary, of course, from person to person based on their personality types and experiences. But I think it's so powerful that you tie that together. And that being said, why do you think it's so important for people to free their voice? And is this just for professional singers?
Oh, I mean, definitely not for just for professional singers, but so many people that join me start in the place of, I'm here because I want to learn how to sing higher.
Okay.
I'm here because I want to learn how to sing with distortion. You know, I love Chester Bennington, I love Chris Cornell, or whatever. So many people come to me with these goals, and very quickly it is evident that in order to accomplish any of these things that they want to do, they have to reject the reason that they came, and go backward a little bit and learn how to connect with themselves on a level like we're talking about here. What do you feel? Why do you feel what you feel from a physical and emotional standpoint? Learn to be a thought watcher. Learn this component of, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking what I'm thinking? How do I feel about what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
This sort of thinking right here is what helps you become a better vocalist. And if we can take a huge step back from our goals, I'm not saying that, you want to sing higher? Too bad. You'll never sing higher. Do this instead. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's almost like every single student comes in with these, I heard so-and-so do this on a recording. I want to do that. Teach me how to do that. Give me the check boxes. Yeah. And what I have to do with nearly everybody is say, look, there is no check boxes. There are ways that I can help you experience your voice, experience your body, experience your emotional connectivity that will lead you to opening up physical aspects of your voice, but only after you understand how to relate to your body and mind in a different way than you're probably doing. And so I think that everybody should learn to free their voice, because there's so much freedom in learning how to experience life in a more full way.
Absolutely.
And we're just using the voice in some ways. The voice, even though that's the goal for many of my students, it becomes a starting point. I never thought about my job this way. I never thought about relating to my kids this way. I've never thought about going to sleep this way. I never thought about exercising this way. Singing, and you see evidences of this in other vocalists out there all the time, right? And this is why I love analyzing other vocalists. We'll take Ren as an example, right? Like, look at how in tune he's had to become with his emotions and with his body, given the illness that he's struggled through, right? He said, I'm putting this into my body. How do I feel? I'm doing this with my body. How do I feel? That mindset right there helps him be more connected to the sensations and therefore sounds and what's possible with his voice. That, coupled with being an extremely hard worker, and being very attentive to the creative voices that speak in, and being able to use the experiences that he's had to be vulnerably connected to other people as well. So it all goes together, and different artists have different balances that attract me. The thing that initially attracted me to Chris Cornell is that there was this sense of opening up past what seemed earthly, to express an energy and an angst, but also a power that I didn't fully understand in myself. When he's in his normal, chest voice resonance, and then he opens up and is so much more dynamic and free and high, and it sounds different and yet powerful, yet constrained, yet there's so many things going on, and when I heard that, there was this sense of like, oh, there's things happening that I have to know about. There's things happening in him. There's things happening in his body and his vocal disposition that I have to know about. And that curiosity, again, not judgment of he's amazing and I suck. It's that curiosity that fueled my creativity, and then through that and dealing with illness, autoimmune sorts of things, and myself, dealing with those two things in tandem really led me to have a passion to help other people learn how to free their voices, to free their bodies through their voices. There you go.
That's so powerful. This is so powerful. I recommend anyone watching this just hopping over right now, just looking into your courses. It is powerful and amazing to me how therapeutic your approach is. And I think it's very, very necessary in this world. You said something that really strikes a chord with me, which is not judgment, but curiosity. I think that's so therapeutic because a lot of times I think we get stuck in those cycles of shame, of guilt, of hatred, of bitterness, etc., because we're judging and now we feel guilty for, judging, or we feel ashamed for judging, and we find ourselves continually judging ourselves for judging versus going, I'm curious, where did this feeling come from? Why do I feel this type of hate? And what, like you said earlier, what am I thinking about our thoughts? Mm-hmm. So I'm very impressed, very amazed at your approach. I think it's very timely in this era, in this generation that we live in. A great need for that when it comes to mental health and growth. You are also, in addition to the knowledgeable courses you bring, the entertaining courses you bring, you also react to songs. What is it about songs, and you touched on it a little bit, that you enjoy when it comes to reacting? What is it about that whole world that keeps you doing what you do?
It really goes back to just a raw love for music and a raw love for self-discovery in that music. With every one of my reactions, there have been songs, videos that I have watched by request that I just don't put up because the song didn't resonate with me. Okay. I didn't take anything away from it, and time down the drain or whatever, but there's most of the time that doesn't happen. I love discovering new artists. I love discovering new music. I love resonating with now familiar artists. And I like that for two reasons. Number one, I learn more about myself. I learn more about my voice. And I think that's the primary way that I do things on the channel is, I'm going to listen to this song and I'm going to pull things out. I'm going to experiment with my own voice, even in the context of hearing the song for the first time. And who knows, I might learn something about myself. I might learn something about my voice, even though I'm sounding stupid and even though I don't have it worked out. I've gotten in on this kick of doing beatbox analysis videos recently.
Love it.
Only one of them's up on the channel, but I filmed a couple other ones and they'll be going up soon. And what I love about this is that I'm not a beatboxer. I have no idea. However, some of the things that I've done with my voice help me appreciate and experiment with those songs. And so, I'm there trying to make these sounds and I'm terrible at it, but that's okay. I'm modeling this enjoyment, right? If I can, listen to someone do something on something that I have no idea really how to do, but I can experiment with it. There's this enrichment that happens just because I'm being playful. I'm playfully discovering things about music and about myself in the process. And sometimes that happens on a technique level, as I'm playing with a particular type of sound. And sometimes that happens on, something from the lyrics will strike me, or something because of what I know about the artist will strike me and resonate with me. It may not have anything to do with necessarily vocal technique, although I think it does subconsciously because of the way it's being delivered. It's more of something that that hits me because of what they said. You know, I remember one of Ren's songs that I did a while ago called "Lost All Faith," and I got very emotional because of the way that he was echoing how I felt in the darkest times of my autoimmune confusion. And you know, the thing I love about that though is that had I not had this respect and wonder about Ren's music and appreciated and resonated with his artistic craft, I wouldn't have been open to hearing what he had to say through his music, and that wouldn't have resonated with me in the same way, right? Like I could read a story about some guy I don't know very well talking about how he'd lost all faith in the system, lost all faith in God, lost all faith in himself, and be like, okay, I read that, you know, someone wrote an email complaining to me about it. But there's something about it being in this artistic context that is excellent and you've spent so much time on, and it's a translation that happens that speaks to us in a greater way. And that's what I love about hearing music and experiencing music for the first time and experimenting with it and internalizing it and being caught off guard that, whoa, that really affected me in a way I didn't think it would affect me. I love that. Another artist that I've really gotten into lately is Ado from she's just Japanese sensation singer. You never see her face, and the way that she uses her voice, really, I haven't experienced anything so dynamic and fun since discovering Chris Cornell for the first time. She's so abandoned, and yet she's abandoned yet calculated, and she's free.
Gotta look into her. I don't know of her.
Oh, it's just incredible.
Ado is her name?
Ado, A-D-O. Start with the song "Show," and you know, react to that. There's so many things that she does with his voice. I mean, she's just making all these sounds and going in and out of all these different sensations that I can resonate with the playing around in my voice. So I can hear her do something and then do it and then listen to what she does in context. And oh, it's so incredible. It makes me feel so alive and strange and cool. And so that's why I enjoy discovering new music, reacting to that music, particularly vocalists that have quirks and are able to express themselves in ways that either I do or would like to.
Would like to, yes. I love how you said it makes you feel alive. I think that's a powerful thing when we can find something that ignites us, where we can bring value to others, but also we feel alive. It brings so much meaning. I love that approach, and I love the passion you bring into it. Do you ever find it hard, though, to balance the professional with the personal in regards to being on? You know how, at least for me sometimes, and after a while, the camera rolling, the lights are bright. I'm trying to be on mentally and not just sit there and, let it pass in one ear out the other. I'm trying to analyze, find education, sometimes perhaps too much, and I have to remind myself just to feel and experience it. Is there ever that tension or dichotomy for you with doing what you do through the camera lens?
Yes.
That camera eye, to put it in Rush's words.
Yeah, all the time. And
yeah.
I mean, we're just before we got on this call, I'm scrambling to try to get a video up that I really wanted to be up to catch the momentum of what's going on with the band, and that there's a pressure there, right, to be attentive to what's going
relevant
on. To in popular, so that it's not so much about well, it is about piggybacking off of the momentum of other artists, partly, and that's a huge pressure because, as fellow YouTuber Nick Nocturnal has said, that can be a draining, I'm paraphrasing here, that can be a draining and demoralizing thing. When there's an artist out there that resonates with your audience and that you can go and react to and pull things from and teach people and enjoy, and their audience resonates with your audience and everything's great, but the well will run dry. And a lot of times there's these lulls where I feel pressured to put content up, to make content, but
because it's still a business too, right? We're still
absolutely.
This is a business for us.
And there's this draw too of, you know, I'll get a request for some artist that, and I, you know, I've done some of this, the great artist, but no momentum on YouTube. And a lot of times I'll save those artists for going through in my group coaching, or in one of my courses, because I love this artist. They've done a lot to inform my inspiration. But if I put that video out on YouTube, nobody's going to watch it. Right. Or, you know, not nobody, but maybe the guy who requested it and a few other people who share his interests, because of the way the YouTube algorithms work.
Yes.
And that's the worst part of it all, is that oftentimes the pressure to keep up is yes. It's a huge pressure, and I don't care for it. Yeah. That said, it's super fun when you know, Linkin Park has a new vocalist and starts releasing new songs, and that's music I'm into anyway, because, you know, Chester was another vocalist who in my young adult life, I mean, he was expressing things that I felt, both with his, you know, sonically and emotionally, and just connected on such a deep level. And then to have Chester and Chris Cornell become friends, and it was this fairy tale thing for a while for me. And then, you know, so demoralizing in how it ended for both of them. But yeah, I think that there's huge pressure to be relevant, but also I never want to sacrifice trying to be relevant. I never want to sacrifice being genuine. Yeah. And doing things because I enjoy it. Right. Like I said, I'll film videos that are relevant, but I get done watching the song, I'm not putting that up. I had nothing to say about that. It didn't connect with me at all, so I'm not putting the video up. And you know, that's happened a lot. I've tried it. I've tried putting them up sometimes, and it just doesn't work. But that, you know, you go and you look at the music trending page on YouTube, or what should I do? What just came out? And I'll be like, well, I realize that isn't really in my genre, but, you know, so-and-so released this video and it's got, you know, 8 million views in 2 days. I'm going to go ahead and react to this and see what happens. And it's ridiculous how it's almost like the system calls me out for being fake. And so a lot of times I'll just bag the video, just won't even mess with it. But yeah. And then the other pressure too is that it being a business, and I think our audiences often don't think about that. Yeah, of course. Yeah. They're there to consume. Yeah. And I think it's up to me as a servant of my audience to be sensitive to that. That people are not there. They're not there they might be there to learn. A lot of people I think are there to learn. But my first calling in what I do is not to be a business. My first calling is to serve you, audience, and to teach you and to relate to you, and be myself, and be excited and learn alongside you, and appreciate music that we mutually enjoy together. That's my first calling. And I've had to learn that when I'm in that state of this is my first thing that I'm doing, if I'm providing value, if I am giving, I will be given back to. Absolutely. And it's this, the open hands are open to give and not expecting to receive. It's just this, here you go. When I'm in that posture, the pressures melt away, because I'm doing it purely for the joy of relating with other people and enjoying the journey of self-discovery and all that stuff, and just trusting that the money's going to come in. Does it always come in? No. Is it weird? And this, you know, this what I'm doing now, being, you know, the internet personality and vocal coach, is the first time I've ever been fully self-employed and supported my family off of being fully self-employed. That's wonderful. That's a very scary thing, because you realize that, wow, if you get in your own head, and this is where, again, that thought watching thing is very valuable for all sorts of scenarios in life. But you get in your own head and you say, well, if the next video I don't put out if that bombs,
Mm-hmm.
then my family's going to start starving and I'm going to have to sell my house.
Right.
That's not
the
true.
Worst case
It's
scenario. Right.
Yeah, it's not that, but we tend to go there, and those pressures are really difficult to deal with. And learning, I totally see why so many YouTubers are, you know, it's like this thing that's just expected. You know, I quit, or I'm done. I can't take this anymore. You know, all these videos going up.
Yeah.
I totally see why that happens, and I think that if you get in this mode, and I've been there, so I'm not pointing any fingers except for right back at me. You get in this mode of doing it because you have to, and resenting your audience because they're not watching what you're putting out, or resenting the YouTube gods because they hate you, or whatever it is, and you just keep going and going and spinning your wheels. If you live entertaining those kinds of thoughts instead of routinely step back, you know, just last week, one of the weeks, one of the recent weeks, I was supposed to film my videos, right? Build that queue up. And I went upstairs. I told my wife, there's nothing right now that's inspiring me. I'm not going to film. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to work on other things. And I had to do that. Did it screw me up for the following weeks because I wasn't in rhythm with content schedules and posting? Yep. But it turned out, actually, so this would have been at the beginning of September. It turned out that, then Ren started releasing new music, and Linkin Park started releasing music, and then I got a bunch of ideas, and it goes in waves, and we have to be willing to ride those waves. And
it's very interesting, and I can only second that. I think there's a wisdom in and a need for that the rest, ultimately retrieving for a bit and resting. It's funny you mentioned that was your resolution that day, because I had that just the other day as well, where I had to tell my husband, I think I need to get better at paying attention to what I need, be present to my body, and figure out what do I need in this moment. It was a late night evening, a long day, kids, day-to-day life, and the goal was, well, I didn't get it done during nap time, so when everybody's in bed, then I'll work. And by the time the evening came, I was beyond exhausted, and I had to make myself just relax and decide, you know what, it's going to be fine if you do this a few days later or whatnot. And to your point, yes, it may mess up schedules or things fall behind, but it'll all work out. And there needs to be the element of practicing what we preach, which is, at least on our channel, when there's a lot of focus on mental health and personal development, I too need to keep growing. I too need to take care of my mental health. And or even when it comes to music, I don't know about you, Al, that was my next question, how you listen to music on or off camera. For me, I sometimes forget to listen to enough music without reacting to it, allowing myself to experience it just for myself. Do you ever do that for yourself? Do you experience music differently on versus off the camera?
I am always listening, not always listening to music. I definitely appreciate moments of silence where the music of my own thoughts and being present to myself in silence, or being present to others without the potential distraction of music in the background. I enjoy not having music on.
Okay. Yeah. Necessary too, right?
Yeah. And I also, though, I do listen to a lot of music without reacting. And I love to drive, and I love to ride my bike, and
that's awesome.
I love to hike. And in driving in particular, sometimes bike riding, I will have an album or two that I'm going on the drive just to listen to the album.
That's awesome. That's a great idea, actually.
And I do that. I do that quite often. Or I'll go on a drive just to listen to an audiobook or something like that. I have to watch myself, because I think what ends up happening sometimes is that I might hear something for the first time and be like, "Oh man, I wish I could have."
A reaction.
I wish I could have shared that experience with others, and that's what I like about what we do, in terms of analyzing music and reacting to music. But what I've started to do is, and this is what I love. That's why I love my job so much. A lot of times, I will react to something or discover something new at the request of an audience member or whatever's happening. Listen to a song or two or three, and then once I have a history on the channel, I mean, Ren was absolutely one of those people. Ado's another one of those. Gabriel Henrique from America's Got Talent. Even Dimash.
Yes. Dimash is,
Where like I discovered him because of what I do. And then in the case of Ren, it was like, okay, I need to go on some drives and just queue up a bunch of songs and listen. And you know, when his Sick Boy album dropped, that was one of those albums that when that came out, I happened to be flying somewhere and I saved it on my phone. I was like, I know what I'm doing for the flight. And then I listened to the album and I got to experience it by myself, but having already experienced a lot of these songs in community, which I think made the album even better to, you know, listen start to finish. A lot of the stuff that I've analyzed on the channel, I've already heard, you know, like in anything Soundgarden, anything Linkin Park, well, not anything because Linkin Park's coming out with new music, but, you know, in my How to Sing Like series where I'm doing something on, you know, how to sing like Corey Taylor or something like that, how to sing like Kurt Cobain or, you know, anything I've already heard. I grew up with that stuff, and I was such a music nerd that I was always playing that music. And so for me, the experience of that, it's not so much a reaction. It's like, I've been listening to this music for 20 years. Here's what I can help you appreciate about it, music fan or vocalist. And so there's this other side of things that
I love that
I tend to really enjoy, and that doesn't happen as often. I think I've pivoted more to doing the whole, you know, my first time experience with whoever. One OK Rock, Taka, another band, another example of that where like I hadn't ever heard it ever. And, you know, I listened to it and it's like, wow, I genuinely like this music.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you listen to some of it and then you go listen to more of it by yourself and then just have that time. Yeah, I might ruin the opportunity to do some first time reactions, but I don't really care.
And I think there's necessary too though, right? Because while we're, you know, pride ourselves in genuine, honest reactions beyond the, oh my gosh, this is wonderful, and we're faking it. We pride ourselves in the real talk, the real reactions. Nonetheless, like you said earlier, there's still the element of being on to serve the audience. And so there's something I think to be said also about having those moments where it's just the music in us, to keep that personal love and the personal growth that we need to pull out from it going, right? I mean, I can only be the best for my audience if I'm also growing behind camera and if I'm also working on myself. With love for music, with personal development, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Right. Otherwise it is just fake.
It's not an extension of what's going on. So it's not, you're right. It's got to be an outpouring and an extension of what's already going on in your life in order for it to be genuine on the channel.
Yes. And I love that.
And, you know, a really good example for me on an ongoing basis has been since I started doing the Michael Jackson studio multi-track breakdowns on the channel. You know, is Michael Jackson's music new to me? No. I mean, it's not really new to anybody. But being able to hear it in a new light where it's like, oh, I've got all these tracks by themselves and I can hear the nuances of Michael's vocal performances and the dancing he's doing in the studio, and I can hear that guitar solo without any other being able to go through. Once I was able to start introducing that format with his music on the channel, I can honestly say that I've rediscovered a love for Michael Jackson, his music, and even that era of music. I have so much more appreciation for it than I did even before. I mean, I already really liked Michael Jackson,
right?
But I appreciate his voice, his writing, his work ethic. The production that went behind it, so much more. And so this is where what I have the opportunity to do on camera feeds my curiosity off camera. Or when, you know, several years ago when Pearl Jam 20 came out, you know, Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, you know, that whole era, that dropped. And I mean, I was on it the second it dropped and rented it and watched it, you know, threw everything out of the way. And I'm doing this right now. You know, there's this melding between this excitement and genuine interest for my artists, for the artists I love. And that's fed by what I do on the channel. And then what I do on the channel feeds what I do off camera
Yeah.
and, watching all that stuff and listening and taking in.
I love that, and I think that gives your channel also a unique angle, because while there are so many reaction channels, and many of them very good, and I love that there are different approaches. As we know, we got their therapists reacting, we have the vocal coaches, we have singers, etc., and that's always unique. But I also love to hear or be reminded that reactions are so multi-layered beyond just the first time reaction. As you just said, sometimes even when you review a song, we all know, yourself, you're breaking it apart and you're diving into deeper parts. And I think for the true music lovers, that's so fascinating to go beyond. I'm going to experience this as a whole song. I'm going to actually break apart, even as I saw you do with some of your Panic at the Disco reviews, where you sing it yourself, and amazing voice, by the way. Love your voice. And where you demonstrate, the educational elements from an academic standpoint, but then you're also demonstrating how to do it yourself, what we can pull out for it for ourselves. Now it becomes personal. There's a takeaway, a gift we get to take home with us, if you will. There's this very multi-layered approach that makes your channel unique and very good. So, side note, everyone, if you don't know Chris Liepe's YouTube channel, go check it out now.
Thank you.
It just, even for me, reignites that joy in reacting to see there are so many things you can take apart and pull out that were hard work and meant so much to the artist, that are beyond just listening as a whole or just consuming it as one big bite, if you will. And that leads me to one of my final questions. Speaking of really appreciating detail and authenticity over consuming, we live in a day and age now where, as you know, the music a lot of times just is background noise for viral reels and videos. You have these artists singing in their kitchen and hopping on countertops while they're singing to perfection. And I'm intrigued lately by those who call it out, if you will, or break it apart and go, slow down. I know this sounds wonderful, but if we actually break this apart, we can see that there's a whole lot of auto-tune here, and there's no reverb and no echo, even though they're in a bare kitchen, and they're all singing at the exact same levels, which is not very natural if we were to actually sing in a room together. And there's this hunger, if you will, even in myself, to address how people are just obsessed with that sound bite versus appreciating the art of music. And side note with that comes then also that comparison trap you spoke of in the beginning, where now many people will hear that and say, well, I can't sing like that, so I might as well not even try. Even though we don't realize that just as much as Photoshop became a thing on social media, now vocal tricks and autotune is a thing. What are your thoughts on that? The TikTokification, if you will, of singing, since you're all about freeing the voice.
It's true. Autotune, AI assistants, short snapshots that unrealistically portray something that they're trying to pass off as realistic. Part of that is just the format, right? Like, how much can you really do in 30 seconds to 1 minute or whatever? You want to hold, the goal is to hold people's attention, right? And even though we all know that attention is so fleeting these days. So I think that some of these things do genuinely stem from wanting to attract and engage an audience. And that's wanting to attract and engage an audience is not a wrong thing in and of itself, right? Like,
agreed.
And wanting to be good at something is not wrong.
100% agree.
But what ends up happening is, you said it earlier, the imposter syndrome or the fear of not measuring up causes us to create false projections of ourselves because we're so used to like going out and, oh, well, we see this TikTok video or this YouTube video or whatever, and we don't know that all the trickery that's going on. One of two things happens. Either we do what you said, where it's like, oh, well, that's so good, I couldn't possibly do that, or there's some little check in the back of our mind. It's like, that doesn't seem quite real. And that's maybe why I'm not connecting with it. And I don't really have an answer. That's something that I've done one take covers on my channel of Linkin Park and Sleep Token and Chris Cornell and quite a few. And I have to work really hard to strike a balance between like, oh, that was the best take, and leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Yeah.
But also, there's this, well, but I want to get the reverb right. I want to get the distortion right. I want to,
Of course.
I want to present something that is not just listenable, but inspiring. And, and I think I have a little bit on my channel of an opportunity because I show quite a bit on my videos of me just being horrible sounding. And then leading people into how those sounds can sound like what you hear me doing on a cover. And so I think that because I'm willing to show all of that, I'm willing to show the ugly, the suck, because I'm willing to show that empowers other people to be like, oh, well, he's making stupid noises and he doesn't care. Then I suppose I can do it too. And that's a really empowering thing for people. And I think that if you don't have that aspect, people are going to look for ways they can poke holes in what you do. Like if all you project is perfection all the time. Right. Or your version of what you perceive as perfect, and all the airbrushed stuff that you do. If all you project is that, and you promote yourself as someone who has all the answers and who's got it all together, and who's the everybody else is look at me. If you have that posture and your content supports that posture, you're just asking to be called out. Have I ever used pitch correction on a song? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, most of us have. I would argue. I'm sure.
Do I have a way that I use it so that it doesn't take over the art and the expression as I'm trying to deliver it? Yes, and that's part of it. Auto-tune is not it's a tool.
It's a tool.
A tool in and of itself is not evil, but if you're using it as a crutch or as a way to falsify versus connect. I did a video, it's not on the channel yet, but I did a video on this. There's this AI tool that you can like say something into it or sort of scream into it, and then the AI tool will put a vocal model over what you just said and turn it into an AI scream, and it sounds amazing. And so I was looking at this other guy analyzing this, and my comment in that video is, okay, we have to ask ourselves, what is this doing? Are we going to use this tool to connect with people and to be expressive and artistic with it? Or are we using it to try to inflate our ego by passing, essentially plagiarizing and passing our own abilities off as something that they are not? That's really not something for me to say, well, that artist did that and that artist did that. So I can, It's not really that. It's a check that we all have to have. And it's a check that I make, when I'm doing a video, I did a video on the most recent video actually, on Maynard James Keenan, this 25-second scream. I did another version of that video several weeks before that, where I was going into it with sort of this ego thing, like Maynard can do it in the studio, I can do it in the studio. I'm going to try to match that 25-second scream. And I tried for hours really down here in the studio. It's like, man, with the technique that he's using, I mean, I could get a 25-second scream, but it was with a different technique. And I'm like, how is he doing this? And I was so discouraged, and I've scrapped that video. And then I went back to it a few weeks later, and I was like, after having listened to some live versions of him doing the scream, realizing that he was using a different technique to hold out that scream for so long live. These were raw, like phone version live recordings. And I was like, I wonder if there's something else going on. So I went back to the Grudge, the song, and I took the music down and elevated the vocals using a tool that they released inside Logic Pro, which I love that you can do that. You can elevate the vocals so you can hear more detail. And listening to my ears, what it sounds like that they're using layering, but they're also using at a certain point a crossfade where you hear the what I heard to be the beginning of the scream come in again, meticulously crossfaded to the end. And so Maynard's doing it, but there's some studio editing that is, and how it's mixed and everything, you don't hear it when it's lower in the mix. And to me, that was just this another light bulb moment in like, wait a minute, I don't need to compare myself to this person based on this And I don't think that they were trying to trick anybody. I think that it was all about the art on that song.
Yeah.
But when I'm listening to that and I'm trying to do it, I'm trying to figure it out for my own voice, it's like I'm comparing something that it is real in a different way than I'm perceiving reality. Yeah. It is real in that it is a produced, edited, meticulously crafted performance or group of performances. I'm trying to make it about one performance, one voice. I'm trying to make it something that it's not, and then telling myself that I'm bad because I can't live up to it. And that is, I think, what we have to do. I think it goes back to being curious, and it goes back to being actively curious, and not just being a consumer of media, and then judging ourselves based on what we see initially. There's these TikTok challenges where someone will sing these, crazy things, and then everybody will pass those things around. And I don't participate in any of them because when I listen to them, I hear competition, and I don't want to be a part of singing as a competition. Singing is not a competition. Singing is a form of expression. I don't want to go out and say and project this. Well, I'm either better or worse than the next guy who did that line. I want no part of that kind of thing. And I feel like if we can embrace our art, our voices, ourselves, not compared to someone or something else, but as loved, cherished, unique beings who exist for the sole purpose of connecting and enriching other people, that we then, the need to be better, even better, a better version of ourselves, it goes away. And then there's this greater motivation, which is let's connect, let's serve, let's relate. And like I said at the very beginning, work on stuff non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
Become better at what you do. Get in shape.
Yeah.
And then do that so that you can connect. Not so that you can project, but so that you can connect.
Ooh, my goodness. This is like therapy. It's therapy for me too. I absolutely love that. That is, I need to process that a bit. That leads me to my final question, Chris, and I thank you for your time. And you may have already touched on it, what the answer to this will be, but in this life, you are doing what you are doing. What do you want your legacy to be? When it's your time to, pass on, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my family to be able to say that I was present and accepting and inspirational to them. I want, in terms of my body of work, I've always had this thing, and even right when I started, that this is going to be for a season, and that it's not going to be a forever thing. It's going to be something that when I'm, how many, I don't know what the cutoff is, but when I look back on it, I want to be able to look back on it and go, this was built to continue to enrich people's perception of art, perception of their own voices, to help them learn to sing. But and this really is most present in the group coaching opportunities that I get inside my programs, and the notes that I get every once in a while through there. I want to grow with people. I want to learn with people. I don't want to do that in isolation. I learn from my students. I learn from my audience. I never want to be done learning, and I never want to be done practicing the art and enjoyment of being truly present. My son, when he was younger, he always used to say that. He started talking really early, and he'd be doing something silly like pushing a pillow into the couch or something, and we'd be asking, "What are you doing?" And he'd be pushing me. "I'm doing this." He wouldn't even care to explain what he's doing, and he just, "I'm doing this," and we still joke about that. It's like, "What are we doing?" "I'm doing this. I'm doing this right here. I am having this interview. We are having this time. I'm spending this moment with you. I am spending this moment with myself, practicing this. I want to be able to continue to hone that art so that my legacy, to return to your question, is someone who was present and therefore was able to appreciate the gift of life more than I currently do. I don't appreciate the gift of life as much as I want to. That's what I would like to be remembered for. And I think that what you do for vocation is a conduit to something, to character development, if you choose to look at it that way.
Very well said. I really appreciate your time today, our most precious asset in life, our time. So thank you for sharing a piece of yours with us today, Chris.
You're so
Everyone
welcome.
make sure to go check out Chris Liepe's YouTube channel, his vocal courses to free your voice, discover your voice. Thank you for your time today, Chris.
Thank you for inviting me, and this was a wonderful time.